What ancient humans actually did when they were sad. When we think about ancient humans, we often imagine survival, hunting, fire, and danger. But there's one thing we rarely think about. What did they do when they were sad? Because even thousands of years ago, before cities, before writing, before technology, humans still felt the same emotions we feel today. Loss, fear, loneliness, grief, confusion, and even heartbreak. Ancient humans didn't have psychologists, phones to distract themselves, or words like mental health, but they had something just as powerful: community, ritual, nature, and expression. 1. They gathered around fire. For ancient humans, fire was more than warmth. It was comfort. When someone in the group felt sadness, maybe after losing a family member or failing a hunt, they didn't sit alone for long. Isolation was dangerous in survival-based societies. Instead, they gathered around the fire. The fire created safety, the darkness stayed away, and in that circle of light, people sat together silently or softly speaking. Sometimes no one said anything at all. Just sitting together was the first form of emotional healing. 2. They shared stories to process pain. Long before books or therapy sessions, humans used storytelling. When someone was sad, elders would tell stories, not just entertainment, but meaning-making tools. They would talk about lost hunters who became stars in the sky, spirits of animals guiding the tribe, ancestors watching over the living. These stories helped people understand loss in a symbolic way. Instead of feeling random pain, sadness was given meaning. It wasn't just something bad happened. It became part of a larger story of life. 3. They cried openly, and no one stopped them. In many ancient cultures, crying was not something to hide. When someone died or something terrible happened, people expressed grief openly, loudly, physically, and without shame. They would wail, beat their chest, rock back and forth, hold each other tightly. This release helped the emotional tension move out of the body. There was no idea that sadness should be controlled or hidden. It was shared. 4. They used rituals to release grief. Ancient humans often created rituals to deal with emotional pain. For example, burying objects with the dead, painting stones or cave walls, performing chants or dances, lighting fires in memory of someone. These rituals gave structure to grief. Instead of feeling endless sadness, there was a moment where grief had a place in time, a ceremony where emotions could be expressed and slowly released. 5. They walked in nature alone, but not too alone. Even though isolation was risky, ancient humans sometimes stepped away briefly. They would walk near rivers, forests, or mountains. Nature acted like emotional medicine. The sound of water, the rhythm of walking, and the vast silence helped regulate their emotions. They didn't call it mindfulness, but that's exactly what it was. 6. They relied on physical work to heal. Emotion sadness didn't stop survival. Even when grieving, ancient humans still had to hunt, gather food, build shelters, protect the group. Physical activity helped process emotion naturally. Exhaustion from movement often softened emotional intensity. In modern terms, this was emotional grounding through action. 7. They stuck together because survival needed it. One of the most important truths about ancient sadness is this: no one stayed alone for long. If someone was grieving, the group stayed close to them, not necessarily talking, but present. Because in ancient life, isolation often meant danger, but togetherness meant survival, physically and emotionally. 8. They believed sadness had a spiritual meaning. Many early humans believed emotions were connected to spirits, ancestors, or forces of nature. So sadness was not meaningless. It might mean a spirit was unhappy, an ancestor was watching, balance in nature was disturbed. Even though these beliefs were not scientifically accurate, they gave emotional comfort, because pain felt less random when it had meaning. 9. They moved forward slowly, not quickly. Ancient humans didn't move on in the modern sense. They didn't rush healing. Grief existed in cycles. Some days were heavy, some days were normal, some days were hopeful again. Life continued, but slowly and naturally. There was no pressure to be okay fast. Final reflection. Ancient humans were not emotionally simple. They were deeply emotional, just like us. The difference is not in what they felt, but in how they processed it. They used community instead of isolation, ritual instead of suppression, nature instead of distraction, story instead of silence, movement instead of stagnation. And maybe that is the most important lesson from the past. Sadness has always been part of being human, but so has healing.